Most people dread the idea of attending their own funeral. It's supposed to be a one-way ticket, right? Well, not for Bella Montoya. One moment, she was gone, declared dead by doctors. The next, she was waking up in a coffin, surrounded by horrified mourners, who were probably reconsidering all the heartfelt things they had just said about her. This wasn't some horror movie or spooky urban legend. This actually happened. Let's dive into the wild, almost unbelievable story of the woman who quite literally crashed her own funeral. Bella Montoya, a 76-year-old retired nurse from Ecuador, had lived a long and simple life. She had spent years caring for others, raising a family, and enjoying the company of friends and neighbors. But one evening, her life took an unexpected turn, one that no one in her family could have imagined. She fell seriously ill, struggling to breathe and feeling weak. Her son, Gilberto Montoya, noticed her condition worsening and rushed her to the hospital, hoping doctors could save her. By the time they arrived, she was barely responsive. The medical staff did their best to stabilize her, but after a few hours, a doctor delivered the news Gilberto feared most. His mother had passed away. The official cause of death was listed as cardiorespiratory arrest, meaning her heart and lungs had stopped functioning. A death certificate was signed, confirming that Bella Montoya was no longer alive. Grief-stricken, her family began funeral arrangements almost immediately, as is customary in Ecuador, where burials often happen quickly. Within hours, her body was prepared for the wake, placed in a wooden casket, and transported to a local funeral home, where mourners gathered to pay their respects. Then, something happened that no one was prepared for. Bella Montoya woke up. The wake was held in a modest funeral home, where family members, friends, and neighbors gathered to say their final goodbyes. Bella's body was dressed in a white burial gown, her hands gently placed on her chest. The room was filled with hushed voices as people whispered prayers, shared memories, and comforted one another. Candles flickered softly, casting dim shadows along the walls. Her son, Gilberto, stood near the casket, lost in grief. He had spent the last few hours making arrangements, handling paperwork, and processing the shock of losing his mother. Then, a noise came from the casket. At first, no one reacted. The room was quiet, except for the murmurs of conversation. But then, there was a distinct knocking sound. A few mourners turned toward the casket, their expressions confused. Someone whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before anyone could answer, the knocking grew louder, then a faint raspy breath, and suddenly the coffin moved. A scream broke through the silence. People jumped back in fear, some gasping, others too stunned to react. Someone knocked over a candle. A woman clutched her chest, nearly fainting. Inside the casket, Bella Montoya's eyes fluttered open. She gasped for air, her body twitching as if waking from a deep sleep. Her hands, stiff from being motionless for hours, weakly gripped the sides of the coffin. She was alive. Her son, frozen in shock, took a step forward. "Mama?" Bella turned her head slightly, her breathing shallow. She looked confused, disoriented, and exhausted, but she was conscious. Panic turned into a frenzy as mourners scrambled for their phones. Someone called emergency services. Others simply stood there, staring in disbelief. Paramedics arrived within minutes, pushing through the crowd. They opened the coffin and carefully lifted Bella out, placing her onto a stretcher. Though she was weak and unable to speak clearly, her pulse was present. She had survived her own funeral. When news of Bella Montoya's shocking resurrection spread, people were both fascinated and horrified. How could a person be declared dead only to wake up hours later? Doctors later suggested that Bella had suffered from catalepsy, a rare condition that mimics death. Catalepsy is a medical state in which a person experiences extremely slow heart rate, making their pulse almost undetectable, shallow breathing, barely visible to the human eye, muscle stiffness similar to rigor mortis, and complete unresponsiveness, making them appear lifeless. For doctors without advanced monitoring equipment, cataleptic patients can be mistakenly pronounced dead. In some cases, individuals with catalepsy have been buried alive, never to be rescued in time. Bella Montoya had been lucky. Her coffin hadn't been sealed, and her family had noticed the signs before it was too late. But the ordeal wasn't over yet. After Bella's shocking revival, many questions remained. How could a hospital mistakenly declare a woman dead? And how often does this happen? The doctors who originally examined Bella insisted that they had followed proper procedures. Her vitals had been weak to the point of being undetectable. She was unresponsive. There were no signs of life. But to the public, that wasn't enough of an explanation. Medical professionals debated whether lack of proper equipment played a role in the misdiagnosis. Many smaller hospitals don't have advanced cardiac monitors that can detect the faintest signs of life. In such places, a slowed heartbeat or shallow breathing can go unnoticed, leading to tragic mistakes. Some experts suggested that Bella may have also suffered from a temporary coma, which made it even harder to detect signs of life. Still, the incident shook people to their core. Bella Montoya's case wasn't the first, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Throughout history, countless people have been mistakenly declared dead. And unlike Bella, many of them never made it out of their graves. In the 19th century, the fear of being buried alive was so widespread that people started designing safety coffins. These special caskets had bells attached to ropes inside, so the deceased could ring for help, breathing tubes to prevent suffocation, and viewports for families to check for movement before burial. Bella was rushed back to the hospital that had originally declared her dead. This time, the medical staff was stunned to see her alive. She was placed under intensive care, monitored closely for any changes in her condition. Her son refused to leave her side, sitting by her hospital bed, still unable to comprehend what had happened. For the next 7 days, Bella remained in the hospital. She was weak, but conscious. Her family was hopeful, believing they had been given a second chance. But then, tragedy struck again. On the 7th day, Bella's condition worsened. Despite the efforts of the medical team, she suffered another cardiac arrest. This time, she did not wake up. Bella Montoya was pronounced dead again, and this time, for real. Her family, who had just been through one of the most shocking experiences of their lives, now had to relive the pain of saying goodbye. A week after her miraculous awakening, she was buried for the second time. This time, there was no knocking, no last-minute gasps for air, just silence. Bella Montoya's story is not just an isolated case. Throughout history, there have been multiple accounts of people being mistakenly declared dead, some with horrifying outcomes. Octavia Hatcher, 1896, Kentucky, USA. Octavia fell into a coma-like sleep and was declared dead. She was quickly buried due to the summer heat. Days later, when similar cases of deep comas were discovered in the town, her husband panicked and ordered her body to be exhumed. They found scratch marks inside her coffin. She had woken up underground. The South African morgue incident, 2011, a 50-year-old man was pronounced dead at home and taken to a mortuary. Nearly a day later, morgue workers heard screaming from inside one of the storage fridges. The man was very much alive and terrified. The Venezuelan woman, 2022, a woman suffering from catalepsy was declared dead at a hospital. At her wake, her family noticed her chest moving slightly. When they checked for a pulse, she was alive. She was immediately rushed back to the hospital and survived. These cases highlight the terrifying reality that mistaken deaths still happen, even with modern medical advancements. Could you survive being buried alive? The thought of waking up in a coffin is one of humanity's greatest fears. Being trapped in darkness, the air growing thin, the realization that no one knows you're alive. It's a nightmare scenario, one that unfortunately has happened throughout history. In the past, people were so afraid of being buried alive that they invented safety coffins caskets equipped with bells, breathing tubes, and even escape hatches in case the dead woke up. Today, mistaken deaths are rare, but not impossible. Bella Montoya's case is proof that even in modern hospitals, errors can occur. Imagine being in Bella Montoya's place. You're lying in a coffin, unable to move. You hear the sobs of your family, the shuffling of footsteps, the prayers whispered over your body. You try to scream, but your voice is too weak. Then you realize the lid is closing. Would anyone hear you in time? Bella Montoya was one of the few who got a second chance, even if only for a few days. But her story leaves us with one haunting question. What if she had woken up just a little later? It's a terrifying thought. And the truth is, we may never know how many people have suffered the same fate without ever being discovered. So, what do you think? Do you believe cases like this are just medical mistakes? Or could there be something even darker behind them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading. And if you found this story chilling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another strange and unexplained story.